All right, so let's see this question. So over here we are given a stadium table, and the stadium table actually has for every date how many people visited that particular stadium, right? So for example, for 1st of Jan there were 10 people, 2nd of Jan 109, 3rd of Jan 150, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the content of this particular table. And what it also says is that as the ID increases, the visit date also increases, right? And every visit date will have a unique ID, and it is like uh, increasing in the ascending order of the dates, right? The ID, right? So that's the content of the stadium table. Now we need to write a solution to display the records with 3 or more rows with consecutive IDs, and the number of people is greater than or equal to 100 for each, right? So what it means is that we need to find all such consecutive rows where these consecutive rows are 3 or more, and all of them have a number of people visiting greater than 100, right? Greater than or equal to 100, right? So for example, if you see here, uh, on 2nd Jan 2017, for this ID2, we have 109 people, and for ID3, we have 150 people. But on ID4, we have just 99 people. So we don't have 3 consecutive IDs with people visiting greater than 100, greater than or equal to 100, right? We just have 2 consecutive IDs here. So we cannot include this in our row set, right? And if you see over here for IDs 5, 6, 7, 8, for all these consecutive IDs, we have number of people visiting greater than or equal to 100. And that's why we have included it in our row set, in our final output, right? So this is the problem statement. Now maybe you can pause this video and think of a solution. And once you are done, you can maybe just come back and check the solution. All right, so let's write the query for this particular problem. So first of all, let me just select from the stadium table, right? So I will say select star from stadium. Now if I run this, I will get all of this, right? Now if you see over here, we have, the people column over here, and what we need to do is we only need those particular IDs or those particular dates when, first of all, the people count was greater than equal to 100, right? So maybe first of all, let's filter on that condition only. So where people is greater than or equal to 100, right? Now if I run this, it will give me only those rows, right? Now what I need to do is I need to find the consecutive IDs or consecutive dates when people count was greater than equal to 100. So of course, like this I have already put as a filter. So now from this particular data set, I need to group, or I need to categorize, I need to like bring together all those consecutive IDs, uh, all the consecutive IDs, right? So for example, this 2 and 3, they are consecutive, but then 3 and 5, they are not consecutive, right? And similarly, 5, 6, 7, 8, they are consecutive. So I need a way, I need to add a flag which can actually tell me that, this particular row and this particular row belong to the same group of consecutive rows or consecutive IDs, right? I need to have an indicator in place, right? So I need to kind of think of a way so that I can place that indicator over here, right? So what is that which will stay constant for all these consecutive IDs, right? For these 2 rows and for example these 4 rows, right? So let me do one thing. Let me just assign row numbers to all of these rows, right? And I can order by ID itself, right? I can rename it as RN. Now if I select this again, this will give me row numbers, right? So 2, 3 got 1, 2, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, right? Now I want, as I said, I want an indicator which will tell me that these set of rows belong to the same group of consecutive IDs, right? So basically I need to assign group numbers or kind of a group identification column which will have the same value for all the rows which are consecutive, for all the IDs which are consecutive, right? So now if you observe these 2 columns, ID and RN over here, what if I do something like this? What if I have another derived column which will be ID minus my row number, right? So now what will be the value for that particular column over here in the first row? It will be 1, right? What will be the value in the second row? It will be 3 minus 2. Again, it will be 1, right? Which means these 2 consecutive, since they were consecutive, this derived column, which I got by taking the difference of ID minus Rn, will always have the same value, right? For all the consecutive rows, it will always have the same value. And why that is the case? Because as my ID is increasing, since I'm saying my ID is consecutive, that means the difference of any given ID from its preceding one will always be 1, right? And row numbers also work in the same fashion, right? For any given row, if I have row number X, then definitely for the next row, it will be X plus one. Row numbers always move in sequence, right? That we know for for a fact, right? Now, if IDs are also consecutive, their difference also will be one, right? And so as I'm increasing my IDs, I will be equally increasing my row numbers. And when I'm taking the difference, all the consecutive IDs will end up having the same, difference between the ID and the RN, right? So, and similarly, if you see for this row set also, if I do 5 minus 3, it will be 2, 6 minus 4 will be 2, 7 minus 5 will be 2, and 8 minus 6 will be 2. So all of the consecutive IDs or the consecutive rows will have the same difference between the ID and the RN. If I do ID minus RN, it will be same for all the consecutive rows. And we are going to use this particular fact to actually assign, a particular unique value for the entire row set of consecutive IDs, right? So I hope you got it. And this is how you can actually identify consecutive rows, not only in this question, but you will find, I mean, this is a pattern, right? You will find many questions of this pattern where you have to find consecutive rows, maybe consecutive days or anything around that. So you can always use this particular technique. You can assign row numbers and then you can take a difference either from the date. Even if I take the difference between the date and this particular RN, it will give me the same starting date always, right? Because again, the dates are also increasing with the increment of one, and the row numbers are also increasing with the increment of one, right? So that's the entire idea. So now what I can do is I can basically, have a derived column right over here. I can do ID minus row number, right? And this will be my RN now. And now what I can do is I can, also one more thing I can do. No, I think this is fine. I can put this in a CTE, right? And I can call it as CTE grouped maybe, right? And then what I can do is I can select from this particular CTE, right? And also like what other thing that I need is I need the total count of the rows, right? So why do I need the count of the rows? Because count of the rows partition by, of course, this RN. Why? Because in my row set, I mean the groups that I've identified using this particular column, I need to check whether the total count in every group that I'm selecting is greater than or equal to 3 or not, because that's the question. I need 3 or more consecutive rows, right? With people greater than equal to 100. So that's why I will need to count the total number of rows. I will need to have a row count for each of the group that I'm partitioning using this particular column, right? So what I can do is I can do a count of 1 maybe over partition by my new column, which is RN, right? Like this, and I can maybe call it row count, right? And of course, I will select it from CT underscore grouped, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then, and then of course, like I will have to use this row count in my filter condition, my final filter condition. So I can maybe place it in another CT. I can say CT underscore grouped maybe. Okay, grouped I've already used. So CT underscore row count maybe like this, as this. And now I can just select star from CT underscore row count, where my row count, right, is greater than or equal to 3, right? Now if I run this query, it will give me the desired results, right? If you see over here, this is the output that I was expecting. Now, of course, I can get rid of these two columns. I can only select, say ID, visit date, and my people over here, right? And that should be fine. So this is my desired output, and this is the trick that I have used to basically identify the consecutive IDs or consecutively occurring dates, right? Anything. So I hope you understood, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.